I'm mixed race, and I didn't realize that the family was going to be like a white mother and a black father.
Right.
And
what if I told you that some of the biggest celebrities in Hollywood have black heritage, and you had no idea? These are stars who don't look black at first glance, but their ancestry tells a different story. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about these famous faces. So, who's on the list? Stick around because some names will shock you. Let's dive in. Number 20, Halle Berry. She's an Oscar-winning actress, a Hollywood icon, and one of the most recognizable faces in the industry. But here's what most people don't know. Her racial identity was once a heated controversy. And what happened during her childhood? That's something you wouldn't expect. Halle Berry is often labeled as one of the most beautiful women in the world, but her heritage tells a deeper story. Born to a white mother and an African-American father, Halle faced identity struggles from an early age. Growing up in predominantly white schools, she often felt the pressure of being different. But here's where things get even more interesting. When Halle started her career, Hollywood wasn't as diverse as it is today. Many studios pushed for her to choose a side. Should she market herself as black or lean into her white ancestry? Halle never let Hollywood dictate her identity. Instead, she embraced her mixed-race heritage, stating, "Being black has only been an asset to me. It's been a strength." And then came her historic Oscar win in 2002 for Monsters Ball. She became the first black woman to win Best Actress. And here's the twist. No other black actress has won since. That fact alone proves how groundbreaking her achievement was. But Hollywood's reaction? That's what I'll tell you in just a second. Even making history, Halle faced insane criticism. She claimed her Oscar win was tokenism, while others dismissed it as undeserving. But through it all, Halle never backed down. She remains one of Hollywood's strongest voices for diversity. And trust me, the next celebrity on this list will blow your mind. Number 19, Kerry Washington. You know her as the powerful Olivia Pope in Scandal, but there's a side of Kerry Washington that most fans never realize. She's not just an actress, she's a descendant of some of the most fascinating historical figures. And her family history is jaw-dropping. Kerry Washington comes from a wildly diverse background. Her father's side of the family is African American, but her mother? She's got Jamaican, English, and Scottish ancestry. In an interview, Kerry even revealed that one of her great-grandfathers was a Jamaican immigrant who built his own fortune from the ground up. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. Before she became a Hollywood powerhouse, Kerry was rejected by the industry countless times. Casting directors told her she was too ethnic for white roles and not black enough for others. That's the ridiculous double standard she had to fight against. And then Scandal happened. Kerry became the first black woman to lead a network TV drama in nearly 40 years. It was a game changer. But here's the controversy. Many people didn't even realize she was black. Her light skin led to endless debates online, with fans arguing over her racial identity. Kerry took control of the conversation, saying, "I'm not here to fix anyone's box. I'm here to break them." And she did. But wait until you hear about the next name, because this actor fooled everyone for years. Number 18, Carmen Ejogo. You've seen her in Selma and the Fantastic Beasts film, but did you know Carmen Ejogo has a heritage that connects 2 continents? She played iconic black women on screen, yet many still assume she's fully white. And here's where things get really interesting. Her connection to African history is deeper than most realize. Carmen was born in London to a Scottish mother and a Nigerian father. Growing up, she had to navigate the complexities of a mixed-race identity in a country where racial lines were often rigid. But she never shied away from embracing her Nigerian roots. In fact, her father instilled a deep sense of pride in her about her African heritage. Her first major role came when she played Coretta Scott King in Selma, a film that showcased one of the most pivotal moments in the civil rights movement. But here's the twist. She didn't just portray Coretta. She actually met her before filming. The real Coretta gave her insight into the role, making her performance even more powerful. Despite her commitment to telling black stories, many fans still express surprise when they learn about her Nigerian heritage. Carmen once said, "I don't have to prove my blackness to anyone. My history speaks for itself." She's proof that racial identity isn't about skin tone, it's about heritage, history, and pride. And up next, this actress's background includes a South African political exile, and trust me, you won't believe who she is. Number 17, Gugu Mbatha-Raw. She's played royalty, warriors, and rebels, but Gugu Mbatha-Raw's real-life story is just as fascinating. Many see her as a British actress, but what they don't know is that her father was a South African doctor who was forced into exile. And the reason? Is tied to one of the most powerful movements in history. Gugu's father, Patrick Mbatha, fled South Africa during the height of apartheid, one of the darkest periods in history. His activism put him at risk, forcing him to leave his home country. He eventually settled in the UK, where he met Gugu's white British mother. Despite her privileged upbringing in England, Gugu never forgot her African roots. She frequently speaks about the influence of her father's struggle and how it shaped her understanding of identity. She once said, "My heritage is more than where I came from. It's the fight my ancestors endured." But here's where her story takes another surprising turn. When she first started acting, directors often cast her in racially ambiguous roles. Some fans didn't even realize she was part black until she played a biracial woman in Belle, a historical film about race and privilege. Gugu's career continues to defy stereotypes, proving that talent knows no racial boundaries. And next on the list, this Hollywood star is actually Zimbabwean royalty, and trust me, her story will leave you speechless. Number 16, Thandiwe Newton. She's an Emmy-winning actress, a sci-fi icon, and a Hollywood powerhouse. But what if I told you Thandiwe Newton is actually Zimbabwean royalty? That's right, her mother comes from the Shona people, a royal lineage in Zimbabwe. And her Hollywood journey? It's full of unexpected twists. Born in England to a Zimbabwean mother and a British father, Thandiwe spent much of her childhood feeling like an outsider. She was one of the only black students at her Catholic school, where she often faced discrimination. But here's what's even more shocking. Even when she started acting, directors forced her to hide her African identity. In fact, early in her career, her name was even erased. Studios pressured her to go by Thandi instead of her real name, Thandiwe. It wasn't until decades later that she reclaimed her true name, stating, "Taking back my name is an act of pride. I am Thandiwe." Despite being told she was too black for some roles and not black enough for others, she never let Hollywood define her. She went on to star in Westworld, Crash, and The Pursuit of Happiness, proving she could own any role. Her success is a testament to resilience. But wait until you hear about the next celebrity. She is a British actress with a Jewish mother and a Nigerian father, and her racial identity shocked even Hollywood itself. Number 15, Sophie Okonedo. Sophie Okonedo is one of the most talented actresses of her generation, but many people still don't realize she's part black. Her fair skin and distinct features often lead fans to assume she was fully white. But the truth? Her father was Nigerian, and her mother was a white Jewish woman from London. Sophie's heritage has made her one of the most versatile actresses in Hollywood. But here's where it gets really interesting. When she starred in Hotel Rwanda, playing the wife of Don Cheadle's character, many doubted she was black enough for the role. The backlash was intense, with some questioning why the filmmakers cast such a light-skinned woman instead of a darker-skinned actress. She didn't let the criticism faze her. Instead, she delivered a stunning performance, earning an Oscar nomination, proving that talent speaks louder than appearances. She once said, "I know who I am. I don't need to fit into anyone's expectations." Despite the debates surrounding her racial identity, Sophie has remained one of Hollywood's strongest voices for diversity. She starred in The Secret Life of Bees, Ratched, and Skin, continuously challenging stereotypes. Her story proves that race isn't always what meets the eye. And up next, this Hollywood producer is married to a global superstar, but few people know he's part black too. His father was a legendary African-American athlete. Can you guess who he is? Keep watching because this one will surprise you. Number 14, Cash Warren. He is a successful Hollywood producer, the husband of Jessica Alba, and a name that rarely makes headlines. But what most people don't realize, Cash Warren is actually part black. His father is none other than Michael Warren, the legendary African-American basketball player who became a famous TV actor. Growing up, Cash had a unique experience. He lived between two worlds. His mixed-race identity often led people to assume he was fully white, and some were even shocked when they found out about his father. But here's where it gets really interesting. Despite having a powerful Hollywood connection, Cash made a name for himself on his own terms. He built his career as a film producer, working on movies like Fantastic Four, which is actually how he met Jessica Alba. But even in Hollywood, many people overlooked his heritage. Some assumed he was just another white executive, unaware of his deep African-American roots. His father, Michael Warren, was a UCLA basketball star who later transitioned into acting, starring in Hill Street Blues. Cash has always spoken about how his father's journey inspired him to break into the industry his way. Despite his quiet presence in Hollywood, Cash remains a strong advocate for diversity and representation. And speaking of surprising black heritage, the next celebrity on our list is a legendary basketball player. His mixed-race background shocked sports fans everywhere. And what happened during his career? Well, that's a story you need to hear. Number 13, Derek Jeter. He's one of the greatest baseball players of all time, a 5-time World Series champion and the face of the New York Yankees. But did you know Derek Jeter is part black? That's right, his father is African American and his mother is Irish American. And his racial identity? It's been the subject of discussion for years. Growing up in a predominantly white area, Derek faced challenges most people never saw. His parents raised him to embrace his mixed heritage, but society wasn't always so accepting. He once recalled moments when kids questioned his racial identity, making him feel like he never fully fit in. But here's where things get even crazier. When Jeter started rising in the baseball world, many sports fans didn't even realize he was black. Some assumed he was Latino, others thought he was Italian, and the conversations about his background never stopped. It wasn't until later in his career that Jeter began opening up about race, especially after launching the Players' Tribute, a platform that gives athletes a voice. He's spoken about the importance of embracing identity, stating, "I don't see myself as just one thing. I am who I am." Jeter's legacy is undeniable, and so is his impact. But the next celebrity? She shook the entire royal family when people found out she was part black. And trust me, this story is one you don't want to miss. Number 12, Meghan Markle. She's a former actress, a duchess, and one of the most talked about women in the world. But did you know Meghan Markle is part black? That's right. Her mother, Doria Ragland, is African American, while her father is white. And the way the world reacted when they found out, it was explosive. When Meghan married Prince Harry in 2018, it wasn't just a royal wedding, it was a historical moment. She became the first black woman to marry into the British royal family. But here's where things take a shocking turn. The British media immediately began treating her differently. Tabloids published headlines questioning her exotic DNA. Racist remarks flooded social media. Even members of the royal family were reportedly uncomfortable with her background. Meghan later revealed in an interview with Oprah that a royal insider even questioned how dark her son Archie's skin would be. But Meghan didn't stay silent. She and Harry made the shocking decision to step away from royal life entirely, a move that shook the monarchy. She spoke about the racism she endured, stating, "I was silenced, but I won't stay silent anymore." Her story proves that even in modern times, race still plays a major role in how people are treated. And the next name on our list? Well, this actress played a teen icon for years, but few people knew her mother was black. And once you hear her story, you'll never look at her the same way again. Number 11, Troian Bellisario. She played Spencer Hastings in Pretty Little Liars, a role that made her a teen icon. But did you know Troian Bellisario has African American heritage? That's right, her mother, actress and producer, Deborah Pratt, is black. And here's the crazy part, most people still don't realize it. Because of her light skin and European features, fans have always assumed Troian was fully white. Even Hollywood execs never questioned it. But her mother, Deborah Pratt, is an award-winning black actress and writer who worked on shows like Quantum Leap. Growing up, Troian never really had to address race until people started questioning her identity online. Some fans were shocked when they learned about her mother's background, sparking debates on whether she should identify as black or mixed race. But Troian has always stayed true to her roots. She once said, "My identity is my own. My heritage is part of me, no matter how people see me." Even though she's rarely cast in black roles, she acknowledges the privilege that comes with her appearance. Her story highlights how race is often based on perception rather than reality. And next, this superstar rapper has spent years trying to prove he's black, because people refuse to believe him. His father is African American, but fans still call him a fraud. And once you hear his struggle, you'll understand why it's so frustrating. Number 10, Logic. He is a platinum-selling rapper, a lyrical genius, and one of the most unique figures in hip-hop. But here's something that shocks everyone. Logic is half black. His father is African American, yet people refuse to believe it. And the reason? It's wildly unfair. Logic, whose real name is Sir Robert Bryson Hall II, has always been open about his racial identity. But because of his pale skin and blue eyes, fans constantly question his black heritage. Some even accuse him of faking his blackness for credibility in the rap world. And it's not just fans, rappers in the industry have mocked him for it too. Despite growing up in a rough, drug-infested black neighborhood with an abusive father and an addict mother, Logic has been ridiculed for mentioning his biracial identity too much in his lyrics. But can you blame him? When the world constantly tells you who you're not, you have to keep reminding them who you are. Logic has fired back at the hate, saying, "If you looked at me, but lived my life, you'd talk about it too." His music reflects his struggles, and his success speaks for itself. His story proves that racial identity isn't about appearance, it's about experience. And up next, this chart-topping singer has black roots, but you'd never guess it by looking at her. Fans were shocked when they learned the truth, and trust me, so will you. Number 9, Halsey. She's a pop sensation, a fearless artist, and a voice for an entire generation. But what most people don't know? Halsey is part black. Her father is African American, yet fans constantly mistake her for being fully white. And the backlash she's faced? It's insane. Halsey, born Ashley Nicolette Frangipane, has spoken openly about her struggles with identity. Because of her fair skin and light eyes, people often dismiss her black heritage, leading her to feel like she doesn't belong in either world. But here's where things get really interesting. Her father's family is from New Jersey, where racial discrimination was still alive and well. Despite her mixed-race background, the music industry has often treated her as just another white pop star. But Halsey has rejected that label, saying, "I'm a black woman. It may not be the black experience you recognize, but it's mine." Her critics haven't made things easy. Some say she plays up her blackness when it's convenient, while others argue she doesn't embrace it enough. But Halsey stays true to herself, using her platform to speak on racial issues and representation. Her story is a reminder that racial identity is complex, and people don't always fit neatly into categories. But the next artist? Well, she's one of the biggest singers of all time, and most people still don't realize she has black roots. And when you find out who she is, you'll never see her the same way again. Number 8, Mariah Carey. She's a music legend, a 5-time Grammy winner, and the best-selling female artist of all time. But did you know Mariah Carey is part black? That's right, Her father, Alfred Roy Carey, was African American with Venezuelan roots. And the way the industry reacted to her identity, it's absolutely insane. When Mariah first entered the music scene in the early 1990s, her label intentionally kept her racial background a secret. They marketed her as an ambiguous pop star, avoiding discussions about her black roots. And the moment people found out, it changed everything. Some fans were shocked, others refused to believe it, and some in the music industry even tried to distance her from black culture, claiming she was too white to be an R&B singer but too black to be a pop icon. Mariah refused to let people box her in. She embraced her biracial identity, collaborated with hip-hop legends like Jay-Z and Old Dirty Bastard, and dominated both the pop and R&B charts. She once said, "Being biracial isn't a struggle, it's a gift, and I'm proud of all of who I am." Despite breaking records and shaping modern pop music, Mariah still faces skepticism about her black heritage. But the next celebrity? Well, he's one of the biggest action stars ever, and most people still don't realize he has African American blood. When you hear his story, you'll never look at him the same way again. Number 7, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He is the highest paid actor in Hollywood, a wrestling icon, and a box office machine. But here's what most people don't realize. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has African American roots. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a pioneering black wrestler who changed the industry forever. Most fans assume The Rock is only Samoan, thanks to his mother's side of the family. But his father, Rocky Johnson, was one of the first black wrestlers to ever win a championship in the WWF. And here's where things get really interesting. Because of his racial discrimination in the 1970s, Rocky wasn't even allowed to stay in certain hotels while touring. Dwayne grew up watching his father fight for recognition, facing racism head-on in an industry that wasn't welcoming to black athletes. When The Rock entered wrestling, he honored both sides of his heritage, proudly representing both his Samoan and African American roots. But here's the twist. Many fans still don't see The Rock as black. His skin tone, features, and mixed-race background have led people to categorize him as racially ambiguous. And the internet constantly debates whether or not he should be considered a black actor. Dwayne embraces all of who he is, stating, "I am proud of my black father and my Samoan mother. That's who I am." His journey proves that identity is more than just perception. And the next celebrity? Well, she's an SNL legend, a comedy queen, and her mother is an iconic black singer. And once you hear who she is, you'll wonder how you never noticed. Number 6, Maya Rudolph. She's a comedy legend, an SNL veteran, and one of the funniest actresses in Hollywood. But what most people don't realize? Maya Rudolph is part black. Her mother was none other than Minnie Riperton, the iconic singer behind Lovin' You. That's right, Maya grew up in a house full of music legends. Her mother was a chart-topping black singer, and her father, Richard Rudolph, was a white music producer. But here's where things get complicated. When Maya was just 7, her mother tragically passed away from breast cancer. Losing her mother at such a young age meant Maya had to navigate her identity on her own. Because of her fair skin and curly hair, people often mistook her for fully white. And in Hollywood, casting directors didn't know where to place her. She was told she wasn't black enough for certain roles and too ethnic for others. But Maya owned her identity. She brought her SNL characters to life with fearless energy and became a comedic powerhouse. She once said, "Being biracial means you have to carve your own path," and I did. Her story proves that race isn't always what meets the eye. And up next, this rock star has Jamaican roots, but most people never realize it. When you find out who it is, you'll be shocked. Number 5, Pete Wentz. He is a rock star, the bassist of Fall Out Boy, and one of the biggest names in pop punk history. But here's what most fans don't know. Pete Wentz has Jamaican roots. His grandfather was fully Jamaican, making him part black. When people think of Fall Out Boy, they don't usually think of racial diversity. The band dominated the emo and pop-punk scene, which was mostly filled with white artists. But Pete's heritage tells a different story. His grandfather, Arthur Winston Lewis, was a Jamaican diplomat and a pioneer in politics. Despite his black roots, Pete was rarely seen as a biracial artist. Because of his lighter complexion, most fans never questioned his racial background. But Pete has been open about his heritage, saying, "People assume I'm fully white, but I've always embraced my Jamaican roots." Even though the rock world wasn't known for diversity, Pete never shied away from talking about race. He brought hip-hop influences into Fall Out Boy's music and collaborated with black artists like Lil Wayne. His story proves that race exists in every genre. And the next celebrity? She was a dancing icon of the 1980s, but her black heritage is one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets. Keep watching, because this one will blow your mind. Number 4, Jennifer Beals. She's the star of Flashdance, an 80s icon, and one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. But what most fans don't realize? Jennifer Beals is part black. Her father was African American, yet Hollywood never acknowledged it. Born to a black father and an Irish American mother, Jennifer grew up in a world where people assumed she was white. But here's where it gets crazy. When she landed her breakout role in Flashdance, studios purposely avoided discussing her racial background. They wanted her to appeal to the mainstream audiences, so they marketed her as racially ambiguous. Even today, some fans refuse to believe she has black heritage. But Jennifer has always embraced her roots, saying, "Race is more than just skin color. It's about history, culture, and identity." She spent her career breaking boundaries, starring in projects that push past stereotypes. And despite Hollywood trying to fit her into a box, she's always stood by her identity. Her story is a reminder that the entertainment industry has always struggled with race. And the next name? Well, he's an action star, a box office king, and his black roots are still one of Hollywood's best-kept secrets. When you find out who it is, you'll never see him the same way again. Number 3, Vin Diesel. He's Dominic Toretto, the face of Fast and Furious, and one of the biggest action stars ever. But what most fans never realize? Vin Diesel has black heritage. And the way he discovered it? It's insane. Vin Diesel was raised by his white mother and never knew his biological father. Growing up, he had questions about his identity, but wasn't given many answers. It wasn't until later in life that he learned his father was part African American. But here's where things get wild. Vin never lets Hollywood define his race. In fact, he refuses to answer direct questions about it. Instead, he said, "I'm a person of color, but I don't fit into a box, and I like it that way." His racial ambiguity has actually helped his career, making him marketable everywhere, from action movies to animated films. Fans all over the world see themselves in him. Even though people still debate his racial background, Vin embraces all parts of who he is. But the next celebrity? Well, she's a Hollywood legend, and her father's one of the biggest music producers of all time. When you hear her story, you'll be shocked. Number 2, Rashida Jones. She's a comedic genius, a Hollywood powerhouse, and the star of Parks and Recreation. But here's what most fans never realize. Rashida Jones is part black. And when you find out who her father is, it'll blow your mind. Rashida is the daughter of music legend Quincy Jones, the man behind Michael Jackson's Thriller album. That's right, the woman many assume is fully white actually comes from one of the most influential black families in entertainment history. But here's where things get complicated. Because of her fair skin and straight hair, Rashida wasn't immediately recognized as black. She's spoken about how people never believe she has African American heritage, even though her father is one of the biggest black icons in music. Hollywood didn't know what to do with her, often casting her in roles where race wasn't acknowledged. She's even said, "I went out for black roles, but they told me I wasn't black enough. Then I auditioned for white roles, and they said I wasn't white enough." Despite the industry's confusion, Rashida embraces all of who she is. And the next celebrity? Well, he's the most shocking on this list. an action star whose black heritage almost nobody knows. And when you find out who it is, you'll be speechless. Number 1, Wentworth Miller. He is the Prison Break star, a Hollywood heartthrob, and an actor who's fooled everyone for years. But here's what almost nobody knows. Wentworth Miller is part black. And the way people react when they find out, it's unbelievable. Born to a black father and a white mother, Wentworth grew up constantly being misidentified. Because of his pale skin and blue eyes, nobody assumed he had African American heritage. Even casting directors believed he was just another white actor. But here's where things get wild. When Wentworth started gaining fame, some people refused to believe his black heritage was real. He once said, "People are always shocked when they find out, but my racial identity isn't up for debate." His ambiguous look made him versatile in Hollywood, allowing him to play roles without being racially categorized. But he's always been proud of his heritage, even if the world doesn't always see it. If this list surprised you, wait until you see our next video. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another mind-blowing reveal. Drop a comment. Who shocked you the most? See you in the next one.